insurance. Why they can't just call it car insurance, I don't know, but that's all it is. It's called a PAP or personal auto policy, but it's just an individual's regular car insurance. Commercial, of course, is for businesses, right? For commercial purposes. So anything to do with employees, business related policies would need a commercial auto policies. So that right there can help you, even if you know nothing else, that right there can help you answer a handful of questions on the exam, truthfully. If you are looking for questions that ask you which of the following, and I'll show you a few examples here throughout, but just keeping that in the back of your head. For example, if it says, which of the following types of vehicles can be covered under a personal auto policy? And it mentions anything about driving for a business, an employee driving, somebody delivering pizza, anything that has to do with work, that right there is your answer. That's not covered under a personal auto policy, that's covered under commercial, right? And I'll keep reiterating that throughout, but that's kind of one kind of piece of advice, taking that into the exam right off the bat. So again, those terms up there in the blue box, they're just very fancy way of saying very simple terms. So private passenger vehicle, that's literally just an everyday car or truck, right? A car or truck that you drive for your own personal reasons, right? Your own personal vehicle. Non-owned temporary substitute vehicle, again, a long-winded fancy way of saying it's a car that you're driving that you do not own. It could be your friend's car, your neighbor's car, your brother's car, right? You're just temporarily driving it. You do not own it. It could be a rental car, right? And if you kind of break down the words in here, it makes sense, right? So it's non-owned, right? You don't own it. You're temporarily using it, right? But it gets a little confusing. Like when you see questions that say, Johnny is driving a private passenger non-owned temporary substitute vehicle. It's like, wait, what? Like before you even get into what they're asking. So breaking just those terms down will really help you. So private passenger vehicle, it's just a car. Non-owned temporary substitute vehicle, they're just driving a car they don't own. Another big thing with auto policies is there's a big kind of either implied or stated permission with driving somebody else's car, either with permission or without permission, right? And that can be implied or stated permission. So those are things to look out for with questions too. So if it says Johnny borrowed his neighbor's car to run to the grocery store, his neighbor was cool with it, then that's fine. But if it says Johnny's wife was having medical issues and in a hurry, he took his neighbor's keys and ran to the hospital, well, that's not okay, right? Even though it was in an emergency, you can't take somebody else's car. Right, so things like that. That's a big thing to look out for on the exam. It's when using somebody else's car, it's always with that either implied or stated permission. Recreational vehicle not intended for use on highways. That's pretty much a big indicator to say that somebody's driving a vehicle that they shouldn't be using it on the highways, right? Driving it where they shouldn't be. So again, if you know nothing else, if you see that in an answer question, if you see that in an answer on a question, that right there, if it says like, which of the following is not going to be covered under a personal auto policy? If they're telling you it's a recreational vehicle that shouldn't be driven on the highway, then that's not going to be covered, right? There, it's a fancy way of saying it, but then it's not going to be covered if it's not supposed to be driven there, right? Recreational vehicles are all listed out over here, right? That's your all-terrain vehicles, your dune buggies, golf carts, mini bikes, motorhomes, motorcycles, recreational vehicle trailers, snowmobiles, trail bikes, off-road vehicles, antiques, classic cars, watercraft, jet skis, all those different types of recreational vehicles. Now, the thing with those is those can be covered, but they have to have an endorsement with them. They have to have a miscellaneous type vehicle endorsement. And I'll show you example questions as always with that, but just kind of keep that in the back of your head. The other question you might get with that is what are, or which of the following is not one of the recreational vehicles, or which of the following is. So you'll have to have an idea of what those recreational vehicles are. I cannot talk today. So motorhomes, motorcycles, usually the one that they're asking about is antique and classic cars. I feel like that's usually the one that comes up. So keep that one in the back of your head. That is a recreational vehicle. Over here, personal auto policy rule number 1 is coverage goes with the vehicle. So if you are driving someone else's car and you are in an accident, the owner of the vehicle's coverage is going to pay first. Then, if that coverage gets exceeded, then the driver's coverage would then extend. So for example, if David is driving Bradley's car and gets into an accident, the first coverage that's going to cover would be Bradley's because it's Bradley's vehicle. If the claim amount is over, say Bradley has $10,000 of coverage. If it's over $10,000, then David's coverage is going to kick in and extend to cover the remaining of it. But whoever's vehicle it is, that's the coverage that's going to pay first. So a good way to think about that is coverage goes with the vehicle. Down here in green, we have collision and comprehensive, or it might be referred to as collision or other than collision. Those are 2 coverages that we're going to talk about under coverage D, damage to your auto. But those are basically the 2 types of coverage that could be for coverage to your vehicle in the event it is, I don't want to say damage because that would just be collision, but yeah, I guess damaged. In the event it's damaged, it's either collision coverage or it's comprehensive. Collision is, and the way they word it in here is upset or overturn. Collision is basically anytime, and it says it right in the name, anytime you collide with something, right? That could be you drove into another car, you drove into a guardrail, you drove into a building, you drove into a tree, anything. You collide it with something is going to be collision. Comprehensive is everything else. Theft, somebody keyed your car, you hit a deer. So that's kind of the exception to the rule with collision. Collision is driving into anything except animals. If you hit a deer, that's going to be comprehensive. Or if you hit a bird, right? Any animals is always going to be comprehensive. That's kind of the exception to the rule. When it comes to reimbursement on auto policies, it's always on an ACV, an actual cash value basis. Good way to think about that is A and A, right? Auto, ACV. These coverages over here, we have uninsured, underinsured, and uninsured motorist property damage. And again, all these terms we're going to talk through again when we get there. This is kind of just preliminary, but over here we have these 3 terms. They are 3 different terms. So we have uninsured motorist and uninsured motorist property damage. These 2 can get a little bit confusing if you're not looking out for it. So these top 2 coverages are part of the policy. That's actually coverage C on an auto policy. This one down here is an optional coverage. So what these are is this just covers bodily injury damages done to the insured. So uninsured motorist would be if you get into an accident and the other person doesn't have insurance, this would cover you in that event, right, as the insured. That's going to cover you for bodily injury, right? If you get into an accident, you break your arm, the other person doesn't have insurance to cover that, your uninsured motorist coverage is going to cover you in that situation. Now, say you also want, when you're getting your policy, you also want your vehicle to be protected in that situation. Well, then you're going to need the endorsement called UMPD, or uninsured motorist property damage. That's a separate one. You'd have to get that endorsed onto your policy. That would provide protection for your vehicle in that event, right? So this first one's only going to protect you for bodily injury, right? You break your arm, break your leg. If you want vehicle protection, you're going to need that UMPD. Underinsured, pretty self-explanatory, but underinsured is same situation, but the person has insurance, they just don't have enough coverage to cover the claim. So they have insufficient funds, basically. Ways they'll try to trip you up on the exam with those is they will try to say it is coverage for the other person in the event you as the insured do not have enough coverage or you don't have coverage at all. No, it's not for the other person, it's for you as the insured.